Hi, my friends. Welcome back to Healing Together, a YouTube channel dedicated to telling the God stories that are going on around us every day. Thank you so much for stopping by. If you haven't yet, please hit that like and subscribe button. We would greatly appreciate it if you would do that for us. Today, again, we hear from Kevin and Jody more miracles, more struggles, the way that God brings children into their lives. And so, please, let's take a listen to what they have, and I'm sure that God will encourage us, bless us, and we might even find healing together. Let's listen.
And Anna's story is a very interesting story because she was adopted by the Nasons from Mexico also. She was found by the Sisters of Providence
in Mexico
City. And they found her in a gutter, and literally all of her bones were broken in her body. And her father had done this and left her just at the side of the road. And they found her and took her in. She was in a full body cast in a hospital. And when Diane Nason found her, she found her in that hospital, and Diane knew that she would get better treatment at this other hospital. And so she arranged for her to be transferred. And the day after she was transferred, there was the major earthquake in Mexico City.
Oh
and it totally
destroyed that particular hospital. Just pancaked.
That other hospital,
killing everybody
she would have been
inside.
killed.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
My God.
Yeah. So,
now, one of the things that, and Anna's just a delightful girl.
Yeah.
She does have severe disabilities, but she's been pretty good about trying to overcome them. She still struggles. But one of the things I wanted to say about the Nason kids that we took in, because again, going back to the state investigators, they're always looking for, how did the kids come? And they would interview Jody and I, and the kids came over. The investigators would say something like, the kids came over and they had a lot of abusive marks on their bodies. No, they didn't. We would just say, no, we haven't found anything. The Nasons brought the kids over. They were happy. I should say happy.
Well, they were happy.
They were happy. I don't think that they were completely happy because they were having to be disrupted again.
Exactly.
And I think there was an
amazing
element of sadness there.
how sweet they were.
But the kids were all very sweet.
Fast they acclimated.
Yeah. But when the Nasons brought the kids over, I mean, Dennis and Diane Dennis was the one that brought them over. When Dennis pulled up in front of our house to bring the kids, they all had boxes of clothes and toys.
Everything
was fresh and neat and well laundered. Dennis and Diane had really...
And they each had their own book.
Yeah.
To which I marvel.
They had their educational folders and everything.
I mean, I've never...
They were so well organized and so well... They had thought through everything that would be necessary for the kids to come over. And again, they were thinking all that time that we're just going to put them into a guardianship, and then we'll be able to bring the kids back home, maybe in 6 months or a year's time. And of course, as the trial progressed, and it took year after year after year to build a case against them, and Jody and I were, because we took the kids, and because we had met Dennis and Diane, we became witnesses to their trial, and it was just...
Yeah, I had to go over and take the stand.
Yeah, it was one of those things where you listen to what the state is trying to build, the case that they're trying to build against them, and how, I'm trying to think, vengeful doesn't describe it. These people were almost demonically intent.
It was wicked. It was wicked what was
on
done.
Destroying this family, whatever they could.
You should have seen the office, the law
courtroom.
office.
The courtroom was just stacked high all along the
Stacks
wall of
of
paperwork.
files and paperwork
Yeah.
on each one of these kids, and
Yeah.
I mean, it was just,
Yep.
oh my Lanta, it was crazy.
But see, this took, and we had pretty much a front seat to all of this during this whole time, and it took several years to work through. I don't remember what year they were exonerated, but in the end, they had all these child abuse allegations, and none of them stood up in court. None of them stood up in
Not
court.
a one.
And they had all these misuse of funds and things like that. And in the
But they
end,
wouldn't let
the
'em have
only
'em
thing
back.
that they could convict Dennis and Diane for was a racketeering charge, where he had taken some money that had been sent for the school use to buy groceries for the kids. And so because he misused or misappropriated funds, they got him on a racketeering charge. And so Dennis and Diane both had to serve about 3 months or something like that. But the state had spent all that money and destroyed this family.
Sure.
And this family had so much community and statewide
But
support.
they also made it to where they couldn't get the kids
And
back.
they couldn't get the kids back. They were not allowed to bring the kids
Yeah.
home.
You're not allowed.
And this was several years after the whole thing started. So we never actually adopted the kids because of that. By the time the court thing was done, Matt was like 17, I think, as I recall, and he wanted to leave home and work at a lumber mill that was close to our house, and I mean, we were fine with that. He was. Even that story is kind of a fun story, because the
Yeah.
supervisor at the lumber mill was very hesitant about bringing Matt in to work there. He said, we work around some very dangerous equipment, and I said, give him a week. I said, I'll even pay his wage for him. Just give him a week.
Give them a chance.
Just give him a chance, and I think you'll see that he's capable of a lot of things. And Ken calls me like a week later, maybe not even a week later, and he says, he's got a job. He said, this kid works. If he
works
has a 10-minute break, he takes 10 minutes and he's back on the job. He said, my other guys, they'll take 20 minutes, 30 minutes. Matt's always there. He's always ready to do the hard thing.
Yeah.
He says he's got a job here.
Wow.
And to this day, he works at the Panda Express
Yeah.
now, and he's been there for years.
Oh, 10 or 12 years now.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
Yeah.
same job. He works overtime every week. Every week.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Oh, he'll put in 60 hours a week
Yep.
this week.
Wow.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Very hard worker.
I think I want to ask a question here.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about the parents. Tell me, and we'll cut it out if it don't work, because I want to get personal with you guys for a second. Tell me about how it tore the marriage apart.
What marriage? About Dennis and Diane?
Dennis and Diane's. Yeah.
Tell me about
Yeah, they
that.
divorced.
It was a grueling time for them. I don't know how else to describe it. It was like everything that they did came under such intense scrutiny that, it would be like if I were to look at you and start picking you apart on every little single detail, and doing the same thing to Debbie. After a while, that just wears on you.
Sure.
And by the time the whole thing was over, Dennis was he was a wreck. I know he had brothers around him, but he was still just a wreck. And I think Diane was too, but not quite as much as Dennis. And so after everything was
she
done
went
and the
to
gavel
live with
was
her
struck,
mother, as I recall. But the thing is that we don't really know what it was that triggered the whole separation. I do think that it was
Now,
just overwhelming.
I've been in touch with Diane since then on several
Yes.
occasions. She has remarried and she's living in Southern Oregon. And Diane is she's still serving the Lord. She says, I was very devastated when they couldn't get their kids back. But she's basically come out of this and said, the Lord got us through that. And so, and what she and her new husband have done is they bought a ranch down in southern Oregon, and they grow produce, and they give that produce out to
They
homeless
feed
shelters
people.
and things like that.
And her husband, I'm sorry, I'm horrible with names.
Dennis,
Dennis. Do you know where he's at?
last I've heard, he's down in California.
Okay.
I heard he had some problems with alcohol after following all of that. I don't know where he's at this point in time. I hate to say it, but I've lost track of him.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. What did you do? And I want to speak for the person right now that their marriage is really stressed. Okay? What did you do that was different, that held you guys together in all of these very stressful? I mean, this story can almost be overwhelming to a person standing outside watching. And some of these people that are going to watch this video are in the overwhelmingness of it. What did you do that was different? And I don't care where you start.
Well, I would say a couple of things. One is that I believe made a huge difference is that Jody and I, were united in the Lord. He really was our rock in so many ways. When struggles and trials would come up, we just stood together to face them. And the other part of that is that we were also united in our vision, that God had shown us what we were to do, and so we were completely united in that vision, and we were going to press ahead regardless of what other people thought. And so that combination, as that all worked together, I think really made a lot of the difference. The other thing that I would add to that is that I officed out of our house. And so even though I had a studio downtown, I often rented it out to other photographers. So I officed in my house. My office was upstairs, and if Jody needed me, most of the time I was just a couple moments away. I traveled. I would say I traveled a fair amount, but I wouldn't say I was always gone. I was very. I don't know what Jody would say, but
when he was gone, it was terrible.
Was it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
How did you hold it together?
How did I hold it together? Talking to God, praying on my knees. People always ask me, how do you do it? How do you even do this and homeschool and, keep the house together and blah, 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 blah. And minister out of it, because I didn't just do the kids. We also ministered in our neighborhood, and I almost always had backyard club and ministered to the kids in our neighborhood. So, and there was always family things, but the thing is that you start every day on your knees in the Word, and that's what I tell people, if you just get on your knees and talk to Him.
There's no magic formula.
No, but people say that, and it makes me angry, because it's like when they're praying for somebody. I'm going to divert a little bit, but when they're praying for somebody and they're putting the oil on, and they're going, because I've asked, would you please use oil, and would you please pray? But there's no magic in this. And I'm like, excuse me, it's more than magic.
Yeah.
It's obeying the Word of God, and I'm expecting the result. So
Beyond
knock it
commitment.
off.
Right. It's beyond commitment. It's beyond God. This is depth of relationship that some people never get.
They don't
Right.
understand.
Exactly.
Precisely.
Yes,
Yeah.
and you
Going
have to have that.
Exactly. And I'm going
To
to
make it.
persevere because
Yep.
God, this is what you want.
Hmm. And my mentor a long time ago gave me these simple things to which I think a lot of women don't get. They just flippin' don't get it. We are who we are, and like Elizabeth Elliot says, he's given us an ordained place in our family. We are ordained as the wife, as the mother. That's our gift. And the reality is that in that, our priority is our husband, God, our husband, and then the children. Some people think children come over the dad. Never, never should that happen. I don't care which kid it is, whose head's rising up and needing oil, they're the squeaky wheel that gets the grease, that kind of thing. You don't play that game. If dad has a need, it's dad first. Then it's the children. And then it's the ministry outside of the home or around or other relatives, that kind of thing. You don't get your priorities out of order. And I think and we communicate all the time. Because he was at home, we had that ability. And so even when he was gone, even though that was terrible, because it was kind of like a setup from hell, to be honest, all the time. Whenever he would be gone, something crackos would happen. And I'd have to call him and I'd go,
Now what do I
this kid is doing this, and literally this is happening, and this person's shown up at the door, and what do you want me to do, and blah blah blah, and gee, I'm glad you're having a nice time in Hawaii on the beach, but this is no fun. Glad you're visiting Alex, tell him hi. I'm pulling my hair out, but
Well, and that particular trip,
that was awful.
that was an awful trip.
That was awful.
That was an awful
When you
trip.
went from San Antonio and Ivy did what she did, that was awful.
Yeah.
But
It's
I
like the
had
kids-
godly people that I called, not the first time, but the second time, my friends were in town. And so I called them and I said, can you get over here now?
And
I
they
need
were there.
you now. And they came.
Yeah.
And they gave her the one for, not that she listened, but it pays to have some other voices sometimes.
Well,
And so we stay together because we communicate. I don't understand people, also wives, that don't talk to their husbands. I'm like,
some husbands
why?
are not talkers.
No, but why don't you tell him? I'm always, somebody will say, I've got this problem and blah, 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 and this kid is doing this. And I go, do you talk to your husband about it? And what does he say?
There has to be commitment.
There was
beyond
no, and I'm
reason.
going, why aren't you talking to him? Why don't you pray about it together?
Yeah.
Hello?
Hello is right.
Hello?
I remember one morning. Well, I want to back up half a step here real fast because my office was in my home. We always ate breakfast and at least breakfast and dinner together, and frequently lunch. I mean, not just Jody and I, but the whole family would sit down around.
everybody.
We had this huge table that was probably 3 times the size of that table, and we all sat around it,
Had to be.
and it was fun in a lot of ways.
Sure.
In a lot of ways, it was a lot of fun. But we all sat down. I remember one time we were we got our son to come with us to church one Sunday on Father's Day, and the pastor's up there talking about the importance
After
of the
you
fathers.
moved out.
Yeah, the importance of the
Not
fathers in the family, and so on and so forth. And he said at one point in this message, he says he's talking about how families don't eat together anymore, and how it might be really fortunate if a family could even eat one time in a course of a week. And so the pastor was really admonishing the congregation to at least dedicate 3 meals a week where you can all sit down and eat together. And Eric leans over to me and he says, I guess we're going to have to cut back.
That is great.
That is great.
So, you know, it was,
Yeah.
I think our kids all felt like we were a family. When we went on vacation, we took the kids with us. When we'd go up to Mount Hood to go sledding, everybody went, whether they were a foster child or an adoptive child or whatever. We were just a big family, and we loved to be together.
And you may not see all the answers to
Right.
all the questions this side of heaven,
Yeah,
but what you were
Yeah.
able to do because of God, what you were able to do individually for every person who's come in your life.
yeah,
You know, it's for
Yeah.
eternity. And I think that you both feel that way. It's not
Yeah.
for right now what you're going to give them, but it's for eternity.
Yeah, one of our sons, one of our birth sons, one time said to Kevin and I, well, because you took all those kids in, this is when he was older, of course, because of that, I'm not going to have an inheritance. And I'm like, excuse me, the inheritance that I give is from the Lord.
Amen.
I said, the Bible, I've given you, we've read the Bible 3 times a day, morning, noon, and night. I followed Susanna Wesley. Susanna Wesley fed her kids scriptures just as often as she fed them food. And I followed that example. And for the most part, we did that. And the other thing that we did was, when they got a little bit older, was Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Give them Jesus, give them Jesus, give them Jesus, until they know Jesus, frontwards, backwards, forwards, because Jesus told me they're going to need it. In this world, they're going to need it.
Well, that's where we're going to end it for today. That seemed like a good place to take a break, and we'll come back next time to hear more of what Kevin and Jody have for us and what God has done in their lives. It is quite a story. I'm sure that you believe that. I hope that you found some encouragement, and I hope that you can take a little bit of a smile along with you in life because you've listened to that. Don't forget to go to the descriptions box and look at the descriptions to the books and check one out. If you can, if you're able, go ahead and purchase one of those. We would appreciate you supporting Kevin and Jody in that. That would be really great. If you haven't, hit that like button today. If you have not yet subscribed, please do. We would appreciate your involvement in our channel. That really helps us out. Thank you so much for stopping by. I'm praying that you have a blessed day, and we'll give God the glory for all of that. God bless.